Dave Raley's Digital Program Manager for Marine Corps Community Services. Dave, welcome. It's great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
What's the story behind Operation Stormbreaker, and why is it relevant to the discussion we're having today about DevSecOps?
It's interesting, yeah. So Operation Stormbreaker was built to solve a couple of problems that we internally had in our organizations. A couple things. One, waterfall development and acquisition process and legacy compliance. Those two things led our organization to have these big bottlenecks, and usually the bottlenecks kind of appeared on the ATO front to say, oh, we can't get this thing through because we're waiting for an ATO, but it was really a deeper problem than that. Not good cyber programs and the inability to get through the compliance process, and honestly, an over-reliance on the actual compliance as a checklist as opposed to really looking at risk postures and how do we move at speed. So we built Operation Stormbreaker to help solve those problems for our organization successfully. So we got a AWS IL4 landing zone that's authorized by the Marine Corps, the first cloud native access point and advanced zero trust in the Marine Corps environment. So that landing zone, then we also built a software factory in that landing zone and got a Navy Marine Corps certification that allows us to deliver containerized workloads at the speed of relevance into production with an authorization, which in this case in 15 minutes. So you're now taking authorization timelines under that legacy compliance process, and this is general across the DoD, of 12 to 18 months. And now you're collapsing that orders of magnitude faster, which I firmly believe is really where we have to be if we're going to be in a situation where we can either deter or win in a conflict if we were compressing those cycle times and be able to deliver secure, reliable, authorized workloads at the speed of relevance. So we built that around there. Operation Stormbreaker, and the reason why I'm excited to talk to you today and kind of generally talk a lot about Stormbreaker is this is a government-to-government business. So inside the Marine Corps, as a government organization, we are actually now able to scale and support other DoD mission owners with the same capability we built for ourselves. And there's multiple other software factories and capabilities like this across the DoD, so we're one of those. We're uniquely positioned and really fine-tuning on a mission owner has a capability and they need to get it in production. And we're, instead of dragging them down on building infrastructure, trying to figure out the authorization point pieces, the security, the zero trust, we're providing all of that through the entire platform as a service end-to-end for the mission owner. And I kind of have a dream and I'm really passionate about this idea of, wouldn't it be great if every DoD mission owner had the deployment option of a capability like Stormbreaker, where they could just say, I have a need, I want to bring a FSI in, or I want to bring my own team in to do dev in a certified pipeline that allows me to do this. The other interesting thing is, as a part of Marine Corps Community Services, which is a organization in the Marine Corps, we support quality of life services for Marines and their families as a MWR and retail exchange type of organization. And any revenues that we generate from this technology service that we're offering to the rest of the DoD just goes back to support Marines and their families through our programming that we offer. So it's a really interesting loop that's really beneficial to both the DoD mission owners and advancing kind of our overall strategy from a Department of Defense perspective, and going back to supporting those patrons that we're serving.
When you expressed the goals of that at the beginning of your description there's one thing that jumped out at me, and that was the issue surrounding waterfall development in acquisition. Normally, I think of that from a technology perspective, and I don't think about the challenges that waterfall development causes for acquisition. What was the dynamic there that caused folks to say, this isn't just a problem for the way we make the stuff, it's a problem for the way that we buy the stuff that we need to make the stuff, is what it sounds like. And
yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. So I intentionally, and it's a little derogatory, use the term waterfall on purpose. In fact, today, we're at the DevSecOps event in Karasoft's office, and Mr. Lamb from the DoD CIO's office was addressing this very thing, talking about how do we actually drive waterfall development out of the department. And so Operation Stormbreaker is one of the ways that we're demonstrating across the DoD that you can do that. The reason I associate the two, acquisition and waterfall development, is because they're very much the same type of mindset and they're very, very interconnected. So a couple things. One, in waterfall development, you determine in advance that you're going to know exactly what you need. You're going to spend potentially multiple years determining what you need. Then you go out and acquire it. I've seen it take well north of a year just to define the requirements for a system where you're writing click level requirements. Yep. And then you enter the acquisition phase. That's even before you get to acquisition. You show up the acquisition office, you're like, all right, go buy me this thing. You put out an RFP and the providers say, sure, we'll build that for you. No problem. It's going to only cost this much in this much time, right? And then they come in, they're like, oh, we don't have the infrastructure. We got to build the infrastructure, get the authorization process, and then we're not delivering workloads for many months, if not years, after we acquire. So now you just talked about a 4 or 5 month cycle. And then when you do it that way, you don't want to go and touch that thing because it was so much effort with the project teams and all the let's just leave it alone for 10 years. And then now all of a sudden our browsers aren't compatible. Right. It doesn't work with the operating system, but we don't want to touch it. And then now we just got to do a complete replacement. So it's a terrible cycle. Yeah. So this is why I'm addressing that it's a cultural practice policy technical debt problem. If you apply the DevOps and agile methodology to both how you acquire and how you do development, you can actually compress cycle times to inside of months easily because you're actually focusing on delivering working capability. And you combine that together with our infrastructure and our certified pipeline that allows you to get production authorized workloads out, you can actually now start building capability even at the prototype stage and put it into production and have it used. So our organization is undergoing a huge culture shift where we start to think about product teams versus project teams. And I know there's many pockets of excellence across the government and in DoD where that's starting to happen. It needs to be much more ubiquitous where people think of, I'm going to get a capability, I'm going to get a prototype and then an MVP, and I'm going to start enhancing as I go. I'm not going to wait multiple months or years before I do that. Another interesting thing that I've worked on dealing with related to this is the sprint-based contracting approach. And so when I see a lot more of the FSIs doing this, and I think that's a really good practice. And speaking to the FSIs, please do much more of that. Look for platforms like Stormbreaker and then work with your customers to do it based on, hey, we've got a firm fixed level of effort for a 2-week sprint. We can define the actual number of items that we're going to deal with, and then we get the definition of done agreed to with the product owner. We deliver that, and you invoice me, and I know exactly what I'm paying for as a contracting officer's representative. My KO can come and look and say, wow, you told them to build this, they build it, you agreed, now I'm going to invoice for those items. So that simple process, and then you can take that development in any direction you want to. So in my case, when we create workloads, I don't even have a description of the workload in the task order for the contractor. Just like, oh, I have a batch of sprints available. I would like to start working on this workload. Okay, let's do discovery together. So you have the actual developing team in the early part of the product operating model, and you actually start to build this as a product as opposed to a project. So I know that's really a lengthy way to describe it, but that is why I'm saying there's a direct link and tie between waterfall development and acquisition.
It's a great explanation and great work you're doing. Thanks for joining me today to talk about it.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.